Yo, what's up, Quakes fans? We're back after our 1-0 victory. I'm shaking my whole desk. I'm so excited. A 1-0 victory against Vancouver at Vancouver in British Columbia. A very unexpected result. And what's also unexpected is I'm now joined again by Devon. Devon, you left me alone for 2 weeks, and I had to
Abram,
carry
I'm
this thing
so
on my back.
sorry. I'm
It's
sorry,
fine.
Abram.
You weren't feeling too good, so don't worry about it. And it was fun. It was a different way of doing things, but I'm very glad that you're back. Tell me how you're doing now and what you think about the game.
Well, I'm glad that you had enough energy and positivity to post without me and to keep the content going for our folks back at home. But no, I'm doing much better. Healthy again, back to 100%. Just came back from a very busy weekend. I'm starting skimboarding now, which has no real relevance to this podcast, but just a random hobby that I've picked up over the last year. So I'm trying to perfect that and yeah, enjoying our time as summer approaches. But yeah, watching the Earthquakes take on Vancouver. To be honest with you, I genuinely thought we were going to lose the game, so I was quite worried and I don't know, hesitant is the best word to describe watching the Earthquakes in every other year except this year. But specifically, like Vancouver is one of the best teams in the league right now, and going home or going away to BC Place, we expected 0 points to come home, and we picked up 3 points. It's pretty crazy. Uh, what were your thoughts on the game, Abram?
I mean, they pretty much mirror yours. Going into this match, pretty much, Apple TV gave us a 17% chance of winning, 16.9 to be exact, but we'll round up. And I actually asked Bo LaRue what he thought about those chances. We'll show the clip.
Yeah, I actually saw that. I would like to think we're one of the most hated teams in the league, but it's good to prove people wrong.
He had a little bit of smirk on his face. He saw that before the match, so he had a chip on his shoulder and something to prove. And he did prove a lot with what we call the average Bo LaRue goal to put us ahead. But, without that goal, I don't think that this result is possible. Going into this match, when I had to do the analysis going into it, I was like, I don't see any positives. They're coming off the back of a 6-0 win against Minnesota. I don't have any great expectations for this match, especially with how the last time we faced them went, where they beat us 4-1. So, yeah, obviously hard to come into it with a lot of confidence. But they were able to pull out a result. Great defensive display. Obviously, a banger of a goal. Yeah, anything else to say about the game?
It's funny you mentioned a great defensive display because I think we can state that for both teams. Both Vancouver and the Earthquakes are one of the lowest conceding teams in this league. And yet, we kind of expected that from Vancouver after coming off a fresh 6-0 win in the week prior, although they were eliminated by Seattle in CONCACAF Champions Cup. But in MLS play, they came off a fresh 6-0 win versus, Minnesota United. And that gave, a lot of Earthquakes fans less hope than uh, than normal. But they also conceded 0 goals, and I think they've only conceded 2 goals all season long, which kind of looking at the broad spectrum for the Quakes specifically, we've only conceded 1 goal all season. I don't think we've been able to say that in many seasons prior, 5 games in, and we are the second lowest conceding team in the league behind LAFC, which still stands at 0 conceded goals in MLS play anyway. That's fantastic. A lot of analysts from Vancouver were describing how this is going to be an exciting game, a nice back and forth game just because of the fact that both the Earthquakes and Vancouver Whitecaps have excellent in-match statistics. Great offense, great defense. It's like a David versus Goliath situation, and yet somehow Bruce Arena's tactics wound up on top despite the fact that Vancouver, is dominant in their free flow state play, as I'm just making up that term now. But they are heavily reliant on fluid football, and something that you would see out of like Pep Guardiola and other historically great managers in years past. But we managed to contain that, and we as in Bo LaRue scored the only goal of the game, right? I think before halftime, which I know Vancouver fans were somewhat upset about because it kind of elongated past the allotted minutes. But you know what? You play to the whistle, and if you play to the whistle, sometimes that can play to your advantage. So we got the goal, led at halftime, and kept a clean sheet away yet again. A really fun stat that I for some reason I like looking at random stats. It's nothing like particular to any specific segment, but this specific stat is we've only had 2 seasons since our inception as the Earthquakes where we've gone the first 2 games, or at least the first 3 games, first 3 away games specifically, where we haven't conceded a goal, and that was our 2012 season where we won the Supporter Shield, and the other season, which it was the first and third away game of the season in 2003, where we won MLS Cup, where we've only conceded, where we got 2 clean sheets out of 3 games away. So, if we're just kind of tracking by those numbers here, we're in for a good season. But we have to maintain health and consistency all throughout, and that's unfortunate because we lost a player mid-game.
Yeah, DeJuan Jones went down with a pretty bad injury. We asked Bruce Arena in the press conference, and we'll show the clip.
He will have an appointment with one of our team doctors tomorrow. We're not sure what it is, but it looks to be a serious injury.
Basically, we don't know much about it at this stage. I'm sure they do now, but at the point of the press conference, all they knew was that it looked really serious. So for me, I'm kind of reserved to the reality that we might not see a DeJuan Jones again this season. Maybe toward the end of the season, but it could be an Achilles, it could be ACL. This turf that Vancouver play on, could have been a big factor for that, because the worst kind of injuries are the kinds where there's no contact, right? And that sounds like ridiculous, but that's the truth. Like, it means that something seriously went wrong, where he just had to simply lay down. There was nothing he could do. He didn't attempt to keep going because he knew that it was really bad. And that's, really devastating to see, especially because I just spoke to him a few days prior, and, he was saying that he's excited to be fit again for the game against Vancouver, because he had went off injured after a big collision with Musowski in the Seattle game. And so, I really enjoyed the interview, and I got a much bigger connection for that player, and I was like really rooting for him even more so than I was, just because that interview went so well and he was a really nice guy. And so that just, really doubled the amount of devastation that I felt when he went down. And I hoped that it would just be like a rolled ankle or something like that. But unfortunately, it looks to be pretty serious. And Victor Costa came on. I didn't think that he was terrible, but I still think that we should not be 100% ready to say that that's Victor Costa's position right now. Do we want to go into the left back situation now, Devon?
Yeah, I might as well. There are a lot of players on the Earthquakes who we can depend on for playing left back. I think the first choice obviously would be Vitor Costa in Bruce's eyes. Other players deeper in the depth chart would be Paul Marie. Benji Kikanovic, we could shift over to the left. He is our starting right back, but he has experience all the way back to Reno 1868 FC as a left back, left wing back. He could technically play there and then shift someone else over to the right back. A lot of options, I believe, at left back spot. We also have Jasinski, not for left back, but to replace Benji at right back. So there is a lot of flexibility in our fullback positions, which is, if you're going to lose someone, at least lose someone in a deep area of your squad's depth.
Chart.
Exactly, in your depth chart. But it's hard to see your top guy go down.
Yeah, and Devon was playing really well. He is a very big presence in our defensive line. He is one of the players that is first up to be captain whenever Ronaldo Vieira is subbed off or a situation like that. I think he was wearing the captain's armband when he went down, which is, again, just really hard to see. In terms of who I would like to be our left back, Jamar is another player who could potentially go at left back. I don't want that just because he is really good cover for Timo Werner, who is, like we saw, despite Bruce's comments, not fit 100%. Just real quick, Timo Werner had a back injury the day before the match, so that's why he didn't start. He should be recovering from that soon. That's not like a serious injury the way that Dewan's was. Just wanted to give you guys an update on that. I would like Jamar to stay available to replace Timo Werner on the left, if that's how we're going to play. For me, I would choose to play Paul Marie over Vitor Costa, just because I think that his general play and build-up is a lot smoother, and he is just more integrated in the build-up. And he is also a inverted fullback if he was to play on the left-hand side, obviously. And that's where we've seen him play for a lot of his career here. Even though he prefers the right side, he is comfortable on the left. And when Paul Marie's on the field, that opens up the possibility to Paul Marie's bangers as well as Bo's bangers. And having two players who can score bangers is never a bad thing, in my opinion. Vitor Costa, to me, like, he is probably on a good day, like prime Vitor Costa for us is the most well-rounded fullback of the options we mentioned, but that's not the case for every day. Sometimes he is just wacky Costa, okay? And he just shows up to cause chaos for both the opposition and us. And on those days, I don't want him anywhere near the field. And a lot of the fan base will be watching this, and wacky Costa is the only one that they can, conjure in their mind when they think of him, for good reason. He makes a lot of really unforced mistakes. He just has like really weird choices. So for me, Paul Marie is a more consistent, player in that role. Probably helps us keep possession better. The only problem for me is it was a similar problem we had with Dewan, where I felt that there wasn't a lot of options for the overlap in the traditional sense, where both players are inverted, right? So Timo Werner is going to want to cut onto his right, and so is Paul Marie. And Dewan showed us that he has the capability of crossing on his left. It's not terrible. He's able to do that. Paul Marie, I've never felt had a great left-footed cross. He, like, everyone's able to kick it with their weak foot to an extent, but it's not like his specialty. It's not something I would consider him great at. I would much prefer if he cuts in and tries it on his right instead, which obviously gives defense another few seconds to set up and watch their man. So that is a downside to that, but I think overall what Marie brings to the field is better than what Costa does. Although there is still the issue that Marie has not gotten any better in the air, and that's been a really big downside when Marie just can't cover the back post in the air. It's just detrimental. And they might, that might be something that other teams look to exploit. But obviously, it's not like we have to go as one or the other for the whole season. We can switch between the two and, try things out. But yeah, it's an interesting thought exercise to see like what our depth is like in those positions.
Yeah, I was kind of joking with some of our members in the Discord. I'm like, why don't we just loan Verhoeven back?
I mean, I would love that, but I don't think they'll let it. Yeah, he started for San Diego against Real Salt Lake, and I didn't think that he was like crazy for them or anything, but they do seem to trust him a lot, and he obviously looks very happy where he is. But if that option were available, if this was like Football Manager, that's the first thing I would choose to do. I would choose to bring him back and then keep him in the rotation for who we play there. But yeah, let's talk more about the Vancouver game. This was a drawn-out affair where we had to defend for our lives, and we were able to do that successfully with a clean sheet, of course. But Daniel, to me, if Boloroo didn't score that goal, if it wasn't such a beautiful goal, I think Daniel gets man of the match. What do you think?
Yeah, I wrote it in our little pre notes. I'm sure you can hear my dogs in the background. Someone's walking through our front door. But
Oh, good.
yeah, I genuinely think if it wasn't for Bo's goal, Danielle should be man of the match, just as you stated. Sorry for stealing your thunder there, paraphrasing. But he made some insane single-handed saves, punching the ball away. Some shots, did kind of go directly to him, but there's that high speed, and he had a quick reaction, as you should for an MLS goalkeeper. But it was just save after save after save. In another perspective, I was at a concert, so I wasn't technically watching the game live. I watched the game the very next day, and all I saw in the Discord was Daniel, great save, amazing. And I'd like timestamped these comments, and I look back in all the saves, and I'm like, how did he not get man of the match, to be honest? Because if it wasn't for Danielle, like, we might have lost maybe 4-1, 5-1. Vancouver was pretty incessant on taking a lot of shots, and Daniel came up clutch.
Yeah, they had 6 shots on target, all saved. He actually did win man of the match on BotMob. That doesn't really matter for who won in MLS's eyes, but no, he got 8.7 to Boloroo's 8.1. Very close there, but still, you could see like Daniel had a really good game. A stat that I'm seeing here that I had to like double check. It makes sense watching the game, but it is so crazy. We had 37 clearances to Vancouver's 14. And that just is another stat to show how, helter-skelter that whole sequence was when we have to defend for our lives, like, for most of the match.
Yeah, also, I think our clearances were out wide rather than through the middle as well, which is very beneficial to how we scored our goal. Vancouver, to Bo's goal, Vancouver cleared the ball through the middle. The Vancouver player could not really, hold possession. Bo immediately snatched the ball away, and without a second hesitation, just went for the shot and struck it right past Vancouver's goalkeeper. So, if you're going to take those clearances, you got to be smart with it and clear it out wide where there's no impeding pressure immediately. So,
Yeah.
Good on us for being smart with those clearances as well.
Yeah, I mean, it does kind of, reflect positively on us, where if Vancouver is going to make a mistake like that to cross it into an area that is pretty high XG for us to take advantage of, the area of Zone 14, like where everyone talks about it. I don't know the name of the other zones. I know Zone 14.
I think that was Quakes Epicenter's biggest talking point too.
I didn't get to see the show. Yeah.
Yeah, no, not this year, but like in years past, especially with like Jamin and whatnot. Zone 14 was a very big talking point.
Right.
And it still is to this day.
They cleared it into Zone 14. Boloroo, he took the ball away, and he kind of knew already before even looking up that he was going to shoot because of the way that he set himself up. Right. It's just a fluid movement. Put the ball into the path, and then immediate shot. Beautiful Boloroo goal. Did we cut to the clip where Bruce Arena was asked about Boloroo's ability to do that, and he was like, "That's actually a regular Boloroo goal." That's the average Bolaru goal. He does that all the time. And I was like, yeah, they don't know about Bolaru, but they should.
I
They
just
should
love how
find
that
out.
was the immediate comment by Bruce, like no hesitation. Yeah, it's just the average Bolaru goal because it is like has a genuine question. Has Bo ever scored an MLS goal from inside the box? Probably
Um,
one max.
I think he has scored one, but I can't remember that goal. I remember looking it up and because somebody had said that he's not good from shooting outside the box, and I was like, "What are you talking about?" And so I went back and I looked, and all his goals are from outside of the box, and that's why Devin, I like stats because when somebody says something that is just like based off of the vibes that they conjured from their heart, that means nothing to anyone. And
Stats
so I'm like,
will validate
yeah,
your opinions.
it's not even like my opinions, but like what the truth is, right? Like if I say something that like I feel like we didn't, do a lot of accurate passing, and then somebody look at the stats and be like, we had like 98% accuracy in passing, and I am wrong, and then I know the truth now, and then we can grow as people. But that's not the goal of a lot of people in this industry.
Sometimes it could be a one-sided conversation. But speaking of stats versus general opinions, I think there was a moment in this game that I wanted to discuss and wanted your thoughts since you watched it live. In the 32nd minute, 10 seconds in, Jamar Ricketts had a really good opportunity from a Preston Judd pass. Judd was within the six. He took it to the touchline, made a pass to Jamar Ricketts, and barely just missed out the far goal post. I genuinely thought that was a really big chance and a big miss, unfortunately, for Jamar. Still can't get his goal, but, he makes great passes and whatnot. Big opportunity there. I was wondering what the XG may have been on that.
The XG, I was literally looking at it. Is point 0.4. So I will continue to provide context on what XG means. It means that point 0.4 means that if he was to take this chance 100 times, he would score it 40 times, which is kind of it's less than you'd think for being so close inside the six. I think it's because he had to like he was contested a little bit. He had to like get around the defender, so it makes it a little bit harder. I think that they take into account the defender's positioning. I can't be sure on that. Yeah, it was the highest, by far the highest XG chance we've had. Overall, our XG for that game was 0.65, and so point 0.4 is really big in terms of
Two-thirds of
the
it, yeah.
makeup of our overall XG for that game. Obviously, it wasn't a very attacking game for us, so it makes sense. But no, that's a shot that he has to finish, right? Especially being like the backup forward for Timo Werner when he's not available. You would hope that he getting opportunities in that spot that he would be able to finish. As a left-footed person, do you think that you would have struggled on your weak foot, in a kind of 50-50 chance and the ball's being swung in on the ground?
Speaking from Sunday League experience, absolutely. My right leg is very spaghetti legged, and my left
Okay.
leg is very firm. So
It's just for
most
standing on?
likely, yeah, it's just for standing. Basically, I'm like a little flamingo.
Yeah,
But
I mean,
it's weird that FotMob. Sorry to cut you off, but it's weird. FotMob says the XG was 0.6 when MLSsoccer.com here said the expected goals at the end of the game was 1.3 for San
For-
Jose.
so our overall XG like, that we accumulated over the game.
Yeah, total team XG 1.3.
Yeah, I mean, I know that FatMob is a run, like the way they get their stats is from Opta, and I have personally worked with Opta, which, could be a statement in the other direction where it's like, okay, well then we shouldn't, believe you. But, no, I did fine. I believe Opta. They are one of the most reputable brands that provide these stats. I don't know where MLS gets theirs. There's usually some sort of discrepancy between the two, but just from what I've seen about like things like if you go on MLS.com and look at our roster, they still have like Chicho listed as the DP, something like that. Nico is he's a supplemental roster slot instead of the U22. Things like that where I'm like, okay, well, I'm just going to not give this that much credit. But I look at both most of the time, so it's not like it's like the craziest thing ever if you're looking at one or the other.
Right. Yeah. I wanted to ask you a question, Abram, and
Sure.
and I'll bounce back after you answer it. But what are your thoughts on Judd as the starting nine here?
So overall, like looking at the other games, not just this game, I think that Judd is very good at what he's supposed to be doing. I think that being antagonizing the defense and just being a nuisance, he's very good at that. But he didn't seem like he cared that much. I don't know if you share that sentiment. It looked like he got pissed off early on, and then he was just whatever for a lot of the game. He was helpful in keeping the clean sheet. I'll say that. But before we had scored the goal, I felt that he could have been doing more. And whether it was because he was getting beat to the ball by the defense or he just couldn't be bothered, it was hard for me to tell, and that was very frustrating for me. So out of the 4 or 5 games we played so far this season, I would say is probably the worst example of Judd performance. But I know what he is capable of, so I know that like we should still keep giving him chances. But I do think that there should be competition. Like that's still a big thing. It's kind of clear at this point that Adimabua isn't like looked at as very close to the starting 11. So Judd is just like the main guy. If we could bring in somebody that maybe is a different profile that could, somebody who is fast is what I'm looking for. I think that pressing is huge in the system, and Judd is very fast, but he kind of, I don't know. It's like he can't carry that much weight around for that long. He is a really big guy as well as being fast. And so he kind of burns really bright for the first 30 minutes, and then I don't think he's able to sustain it. What are your thoughts?
I think for the most part, I agree with what you've said. I will state that I think Judd displays a lot of hustle and care for the team. And I think he represents that in ways where he's most comfortable in performing. And by what I mean by that is he loves playing in the middle. Anywhere in the middle, I feel like he can strive and perform as what we know he's best at in finishing and taking shots, whatnot. If he's caught out away from the middle of the field, which is why I was really upset that I missed the last couple of episodes with you, Abram, because I really wanted to talk about this for the Seattle game as well. Not just with Vancouver, but I noticed it in Seattle. When he is asked to pick up possession away from the middle of the field, it seems like he's really confused as to what he wants to do next. There was a time versus Seattle, and I'll go back to Vancouver here, but there was a moment in Seattle where he was sent a through ball out to the right side of the field, and one of the Seattle defenders was positioned really well and holding him off to face the corner flag, and Judd ended up backing his body into the Seattle player and shielding the ball rather than kind of flushing it back to the midfield and bringing it into the center of the field again for another opportunity.
Recycling the ball, yeah.
Yeah, recycling. Thank you. That was the word I was looking for. He didn't recycle the ball. He just kind of stood there kind of confused, like, what am I going to do next? What do I do? I'm not here in front of goal. It's those kinds of things where I think we need a DP9 because, it's not necessarily against Judd, but I think if we want to really perform at a high level, at a playoff level where we're going to win playoff games, we need a player that's capable of kind of going one step further than what a a regular 9 is required to do. Someone who is not just clinical, but who has the ball knowledge to recycle those plays and to keep the play going at a high rate, high speed and whatnot. That's what we need, and that's unfortunately just what I don't see out of Judd that I think we need more of.
Yeah, I totally agree. You did bring that up in the press box against Seattle, where it's like if it's not a literal breakaway or like we're fitting to cross it into the box, those are the two things that he does right. So he's looking to get on the end of long balls, and if we're attacking from the wing or whatever, he is looking to get in the box for the cross, like very quintessential forward things. But like things that provide that require more nuance, like you get the ball wider than you're used to. What do I do with it now? Like he looks very confused and chooses the wrong thing. He doesn't like just wildly make a choice, and then it is frustrating to watch. And then you also have to consider that because he's the only real striker right now, Timo Werner can also play there, but I have questions about his fitness. If Judd gets an injury or a red card or is unavailable for yellow card accumulation, he already has two. We're very thin in that department, and I think I spent a lot of the last episode talking about the depth that we have in our front line is not good enough, and that's why I think Ricketts should not be asked to play left back, because then that takes him out of contention for the very thin depth that we already have in that front line. And Devin, you and I are very clearly opposed on whether or not Buddha should be playing striker. I have feelings about it. I think that he is not the worst striker I've ever seen. He is not Andy Rios. But I also, if all things are if all things are normal, I think that he is a winger, and I don't think that he's very effective in the times that I've seen him play at striker. I saw him play at striker once at Quakes 2, where I was like, this is the second coming of Arne and Ronaldo. But obviously that's a much different level. I think that at the MLS level, he is not physically suited to go up against center backs. I think that he can outmaneuver, but I don't think that he has that burst of pace. Like they say he's quick and stuff. I think that he's one of the slower guys in our front line. I think that Ricketts is faster, Vern is faster, Judd is faster, Skane is faster. He's not slow, but he's not going to burn a center back. And that's where I'm like, I would like somebody who can do that. Where he's good is hold-up play. He is able to come in as a false nine and then, make passes. But I just don't think he provides enough of a threat when he is the lone striker. Maybe in a two-striker system, it could be more effective. But it's just I don't trust him there, and I like what he provides on the wing a lot more. Maybe not in the last few games. He hasn't been the Buddha that I know last probably 3 games, but that's besides the point.
Yeah. I mean, so for the most part, I definitely agree that Buddha is better on the wing. I think it was a conversation of matchups, but we won't really get into that. I do think that Buddha is great with one-on-ones. However, going back to the original playoff contention discussion, if we want to make playoffs and if we want to win games in playoff moments, we need someone that's better than Buddha and Judd. And that's not to say that Buddha and Judd are bad players. That's not to say that anyone in our attacking lineup are bad players, because I really like what Ricketts is capable of and what he's already brought to the table, especially that one run that he had when DeJuan Jones got hurt and he hustled all the way back and he and Roberts made that sliding challenge to block a shot or Vancouver shot. I think it's moments like that where Jamar Ricketts almost is establishing a starting role or a starting caliber behavior in this squad. Like he's doing the necessary things to make him a starter, and I'm sure Judd and Oseni Buddha, tallying some goals here and there are also kind of doing somewhat similar, but they're not at the level of Chicho Arango and Josef Martinez to make a significant week after week impact, and that is where the DP9 comes in hand. If we want to make a stronger impact versus these high caliber teams like Vancouver, we can't only rely on midfielders like Bo LaRue scoring goals. Our offense needs to come into play and finish these chances. Not to put Ricketts on blast again, but to finish a chance it's like so close in front of goal. We need those. We need those to go in the back of the net to maintain a healthy lead and not just for the Quakes fans, but for the players and staff to kind of have more breathing room during a game and establish more dominance as our our stats suggest. That's where our DP9 comes in play, and we need something in the summer transfer window.
Yeah, and I mean, I feel like it should already be a thing that they're looking at. You'd hope. Bruce has said that he's looking for reinforcement in the front, but then we asked him about it again, and he's like, I'm not just going to bring random guys. Like, okay, so we're not looking at anyone, I guess. Like, we don't want random players. Sure. And it is a little bit worrying. I would agree that, like, having just... Because, yeah, Judd, I like him, but, again, if he is not available for whatever reason, then even if Buddha is, like, playing at the same efficiency as Judd at striker, then Skane has to come on the right, and Skane isn't providing it as much as Buddha is on the right, and so the level goes down very quickly once one player isn't available. And say like Buddha goes to African Cup of Nations or whatever, and Judd gets yellow card accumulation. What do we do? Like, they're like that shouldn't be a problem that we're looking at and like being like, okay, well, Edwin Mendoza go right wing. Like, like we shouldn't have to look at like the options like that. Obviously, we brought in probably Nani Adumabua to help with that problem, but we haven't seen him at all. We haven't. I think he made an appearance on the bench in the first game or something, but. I would like to see a lot more from him, just because I think that he is probably closer to ready to play at the MLS level than anyone else we have. But if we had a DP9, then we wouldn't be worried at all. Like there would be a lot less worry here. And yeah, I mean it's very ridiculous the level of depth that we don't have in these roles that are very important, not just to soccer in general, but the way we play with a really intense press from the front, that's really big for sustainability for the rest of the season. If we don't bring in anyone, then that's going to be really tough going into the later stage of the season.
Yeah, that's also where I kind of agree with Bruce's comment as well, and I want to bring this back up of, Bruce saying like, I'm not going to bring just anyone to the team. Like, we want to have a team with great chemistry and who's on the same page. And, something that many of the fans noticed last season, that Josef Martinez and sometimes Chicho Arango weren't a part of that defensive pressing system. Your initial press comes from your strikers. That's your first line of defense. And, some of those guys weren't doing that. If Bruce were to bring in a player starting DP9, it would have to be someone who follows that track of high pressing and make sure that everyone's on the exact same page. How many players can we think of off the top of our heads who can do that? Probably not many. I genuinely can't think of one because my brain is completely black right now. But yeah, there's not many of those guys, and you got to go through the whole negotiation process, and we're only, as of recording, I think we're about 3 days away from the end of the transfer window. I don't see us making any moves anytime soon. However, I did talked to someone in our Discord server, and we did make mention that we're within the 6-month window of signing possible free agents by summer. So, you know, we could be in negotiations right now with a player, but we just won't get them until summer, kind of like what Orlando's going through with, Antoine Griezmann. So it's a patience game at this point, and we just kind of have to manage our depth as we go along, and hope that we mitigate as much damage as possible while still maintaining an excellent record so far.
Yeah, obviously it's a really good start to the season, and we do want to kind of manage expectations by bringing up the things that we do have to look at, and because it's like one of these things happen, like we said, that causes a domino effect, and that really affects the trajectory of the season. And so just have to keep that in mind if you're somebody who likes to pay attention to this kind of thing. You're not just like optimistic without any reason. There are things that we do have to look at here. But apart from that, we also had a win with our Quakes 2 side. Quakes 2 beat Colorado to 4-1. Devin, you were able to watch the whole match?
Yeah, I was able to watch most of it. I think the first half, Quakes 2 looked pretty shaky. And then I think, maybe after like 14 minutes, the team seemed to pick up their pace and up the ante on defense and whatnot. We conceded a goal 4 minutes into the match, and I think that was like a really big stepping stone for the team. Like, hey, let's get it together. Let's reorganize, reshape right now. And then as the game progressed, we slowly, found our legs and we pressed really high and managed to generate some chances off of Colorado mistakes. What do you see, Abram?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned that we pressed high. If you guys think that the first team presses high, you have no idea. The freaking Quakes 2, they press with 6 guys just running at the goalkeeper directly, and it's crazy to watch. I agree that the Quakes 2 hadn't found their footing, super early on in the match, and that goal was just a little bit of luck from Colorado's end, but also a lack of focus. I felt that the Quakes 2 team shouldn't have let Colorado, have dominance in the box. They had that whole area covered by a few guys, and we were punished for it. But it wasn't like the cleanest set piece play I've ever seen. But besides that, we mentioned a super high press. Adrian Spivey for me was the guy I'm looking at to be like, okay, this guy could be playing in the first team. Not right now. I think that he's still a little bit small. But I think that he right now is closer than I saw Cruz Medina ever get. I liked him that much. On the ball, very, very quick, very good on the ball. Probably not as technical as Cruz Medina, but he is much faster. He was, for me, the one pressing the most intently in the first half, at least, because I only got to watch the first half of the game. And he also helped a lot in the verticality. So he started off as, to me, he was the number 10, but he would be making runs to the wide positions to help out Donnery, who is 6'5" and not super fast, but he is capable on the ball, so they had him on the wing. And he was helping, make those runs in behind and then cutting in. To me, Spivey, if you haven't gotten the chance to watch him, he also got the assist on the first goal. He got a goal of his own later on. Super good thing to say about him. I think that he is on the right track. The commentators were saying that every game he gets better. So I'm hoping that if we check back in a few months' time, that he'll be even better at that point as well.
Yeah, I agree. 1 goal, 1 assist performance. Spivey, in my opinion, I'm not sure who the man of the match was, but it should go to Cajun Spivey. So just for clarity, the San Jose Earthquakes 2 starting lineup was Nate Crockford and goalkeeper, Jack Jasinski, Max Floriani, Nicholas Dossman, Martin Mukakwende Jr., Kadrian Spivey, Rohan Rajagopal, Edwin Mendoza, Julian Donnery, Zach Bohane, and Nonso Adimabua, otherwise known as Nani. That was your starting 11. I think there were some good performances on our defensive end as well. I kind of liked what Jasinski brought to the table, and I was somewhat impressed with a lot of Max Floriani's abilities as well, especially in the air. But it is hard to look past anything besides Kadrian Spivey's performance. I want to give Nate Crockford a round of applause as well, because there was a moment where one of the Colorado players, I think, was in on goal and took a pretty hard shot far post, and Crockford had, I think, one save. Yeah, one save of the game, and that was one of the most crucial saves that I had seen. A really good save. Looking at the stats, there was only one save. So pretty good performance by Crockford as well. He is one to watch moving forward. I know he was a player that we traded using GAM, I think, from another club. I believe it was
Cincinnati.
It was Cincinnati. Yeah, it was Cincinnati. So if you want to invest yourself into Quakes 2, keep an eye out on Crockford. He's a pretty good player. That said, a couple of players came on as substitutes. Tomo Allen in the 71st minute, Shane De La Flores in the 65th, and Eugene Kikuchi in 82nd. I'm sorry if I butchered your name. Eugene Kikuchi, yes. Both, and Jacob Heisner in the 65th minute. Gabe Bracken Sarah as well in the 64th. It looks like we used all of our substitutes, whereas Rapids 2 only used 2 subs, with a lot more remaining. So Quakes 2 utilized their subs pretty well and maintained pressure all throughout. Just like the first team, Quakes 2 got a goal in the stoppage time of the first half, equalized right before halftime. And then, as the second half progressed, it seemed like Quakes 2 really found their footing and gave Colorado a really hard time, forced mistakes, and really punished them for just a lack of focus. Anything that you saw in particular, Abram?
I mean, I just want to keep talking about Kadrian Spivey. He was very lively. So what I see we're confirming the difference between FotMob and what are you looking at, MLS.com?
No, FotMob as well, actually.
Okay, well for me, we'll cut that. For me, it shows that Colorado used all of their substitutes, so I'm wondering what the difference is there. But
you're right. Yeah, the substitution part was from the match recap by the Earthquakes site itself.
But no, Spivey got an 8.3 rating. Floriani got the second highest rating with an 8 flat. Those were the 2 highest rated players in the game. Floriani looked really good. I thought he commanded the space very well. Colorado, we would talk about the Quakes 2 high press. Colorado also had a pretty decent press, but we just have a very press-resistant midfield, and it also helps when you have 6'4" Adimabua and 6'5" Donnery to just lob it up to win that first and second ball, and those are the 2 ways that you negate press: play through it or play over it. And we had the capability of doing that. Zach Bohane is somebody who I had heard of about a year or 2 ago. Somebody that the Quakes were looking at, but he was playing at Stanford. He had, 38 goal contributions in 72 matches, if I'm not mistaken, for Stanford. He wore the number 10 shirt, so that's obviously a really big honor for him. He was fun. I think that we've had wingers that have been more suited to the team. in the past, but we've also had wingers that were less suited. What's his name? Robert Hadigan comes to mind. Max Arfston. Who else? Who
I'm
else?
still hung up on not signing Hadigan to the first team. I thought he was quality enough.
Hadigan is actually a real estate agent now. So he is no longer playing pro ball, but very
Exciting
good player.
contact.
Yeah, very good player. Unfortunate that nothing ever came of that. And also, Chance Cowell also was another winger who never really panned out for him. Maybe something will come of his time at Real Salt Lake. But Zach Bowen did get the equalizing goal, so can't complain too much. He had a pretty good game overall. I'm not trying to harp on him too much. I'm just talking about how I view the evolution of the Quakes 2 lineup over the last four years, I think it is. But Cadrian Spivey for me is up there with Alex Chow and Nico Chikaris when he had time there. He's up there with those guys, and I think that he could really be somebody that we're looking to bring into the first team. Honestly, he's a little bit small, but if he were to bulk up a little bit, I think that he could do a job for maybe 15 minutes in Nico's position. If Nico's tired. Last 15 minutes of a game, Spivey goes on. That's how highly I view him right now. But obviously this was a good game, so we'll have to watch more of him to get a better idea of what he will develop into. Any other thoughts on this match, Devin?
No, I think we mostly covered it. I think, Quakes 2 as a team are really good at converting their opportunities. There was a lot of giveaways by Colorado, and Colorado did give us an own goal. But I think the reason why Quakes 2 is so exciting is because we're able to convert our chances. And, there was a moment where let me get the goal scorer here for a sec. I believe it was Shane DeFlores.
Mm-hmm.
DeFlores, was a sub, came on and stripped the ball from one of the Colorado players and was one-on-one, and was able to, slot it past the goalkeeper. Those are things that the first team, I hope, to see more of from the first team, but the second team is taking care of business in that form. And by that, I think it's really entertaining to watch.
Right. Devin, do you remember when we had a whole conversation in the Discord? Guys, join the Discord. We keep referencing it because we have great conversations there. We talked about BDP, build-up disruption percentage.
Yes.
So I had gotten it wrong in one of the episodes where I did alone. I had calculated the BDP based off of the overall percentage that the team had and then didn't have versus a certain team. BDP is the accurate way to calculate BDP, build up disruption percentage, is to calculate the passing accuracy of a team's over their season average, and then juxtapose that against their passing percentage versus you. And so basically what that will tell you is how able your team was to disrupt their passing percentage. Otherwise, see how effective your press was. Does that make sense? And the Quakes 2 had a BDP score of 7.66, which is up there with some Premier League teams that like Brighton who press really heavily. Very, very good. It's early in the season, so this isn't super accurate for all their games probably, and they did seem to slow down later on in the match. But just to put it into context for Colorado, they have, in the 3 games that they played against other teams, they had 86 passing percentage, 88, and 86. So that's an average of 86.66. And against Quakes 2, they had a passing accuracy of 79, much lower than their average. So that gives the Quakes 2 team a build-up disruption percentage of 7.66, which is very high. So whatever Dan Gear is feeding these guys, we'd like some too, because those are very good numbers, and it's just a testament to the intensity of Quakes 2's press. They're probably trying to emulate the first team, and well, if you're gonna make it in the first team, you have to show that you could press really heavy, and Quakes 2 are doing that really well right now. So great to see that. But that's all I wanted to add on that front. I just wanted, because watching the game, I wanted to see, because the press is so intense. I was curious what the BDP was. But yeah, that's going to be it for our analysis of the Vancouver game and the Quakes 2 match. We'll be back next week to discuss the preview for the San Diego game. But until then,
Quakes 3.
What's that?
The Quakes 3 match.
Quakes 3
versus the actual. Yeah. I only joke because the San Diego FC has a lot of the Earthquakes. Former players.
I was so
Verhoeven,
confused,
etc. Yeah, no, I didn't tell you that joke before I said it, so it's very awkward.
No, keep that in. That's really funny. Okay. Well, yeah, we'll be back next week. Excited to see you guys there. But until then, go Quakes.
Go Quakes.